Hello everyone, it is Sunday night and we are here at Bat City, which means it's time to wind down your weekend, where we're going to talk about all of this week's small press and indie new releases in comic books. As always, I am your host, Shannon, aka Small Press Shann, here to tell you about why I'm obsessed with every single comic book that ever comes out, because that's what ends up happening every time. And I'm going to do it while I drink this bottle of wine. So this week we are drinking William Wright. It's a Pinot Noir. I believe it's a reserve specialty, but it is a Pinot Noir. Also, is this Aldi? This is also available at Aldi stores? Yeah, I believe so. So we're going to give this a taste. If you know us, you know we love our dark reds and things like Pinot Noir, so we're going to give it a go. I don't know what flavor that is. This says it has red cherry and blackberry with subtle vanilla notes.
I taste that.
You taste that? Mm-hmm. You taste that cherry? I feel like the cherry is what
vanilla.
I definitely taste a lot of the cherry. Like, it's like the world's best tasting cough medicine kind of thing. Like, because that's what I associate with cherry with. Cherry flavor exists nowhere else but in cough medicine. Probably because I can only have liquid cough medicine. But it's really surprisingly light for a Pinot Noir. Like, it doesn't feel very thick at all. It doesn't feel that super dark, high tannin anything. It says it's supposed to be silky smooth. It kind of feels like that's just their way of saying that it's a lighter texture of a wine. But it says it's good for pairing with appetizers, salads, poultry, fish, and cheeses. I do love pretty much all of those things. So I'm going to have to try it out with some fish probably later tonight because that sounds really good. All right. I know most of you are probably watching the Super Bowl right now, so hopefully you're watching this later on the playback. Also, don't take my video down because I used the S word on it. I know it's like one of those things you're not allowed to say you're doing something. But I'm going to share this so people can join us. I could spell comics right. Sweet. All right, so I'm going to get that going. And before I kick off with all of this small press and indie books that released this week, I'm going to talk about something we got in the mail. So this came from our friends at Black Box Comics this week. I'm going to slide all of that over there so I don't knock it down. And I haven't actually opened it up yet other than to just like pop the tape because I'm really bad at that and I didn't want to have to pop tape in front of you on the video because every time I do that on a video, I feel like you're all judging me. So we're going to open it up though, specifically. I do like that they I'm going to say this, they didn't put extra tape to tape the books down, and I really, really appreciate that because that's the whole point of a Gemini mailer is that you don't need to tape the inside. So I do appreciate that. In fact, what they taped down was the pins so that they didn't slide around, but they did send us Black Box Comics pins, and there's one for each of us, one for me and one for Matt, which truly completely appreciate because I can never find a writing utensil of any kind at my counter. So thank you for saving my day already. We got a nice little letter that says thanks for our kind words and support, and they hope that we appreciate this token and that we're having great luck in Florida. So I really appreciate that, Black Box. We've shared Black Box books on our show and in our store since long before we ever moved here. So it's super cool that they're sending us stuff to support being in our new location. I'm going to do this. Oh man, look at how easy that was to open. Thank you. All right, what do we got? Well, I'm going to have to open it to see which title this is, but I want to show them first. Can I open it?
Sure. Okay,
I'm just going to slide up the back. I'm not going to take it out because, again, I don't want to ruin anything, so hopefully I can. This is Dr. Wilder. I pulled that all the way out because it was all the way at the top. This is Dr. Wilder, and this is issue 5 of that from Black Box. I'm going to have to put that board back in that. We've got, this looks like this is also a Dr. Wilder issue. I love these virgin variants. I guess we call them full art now, which is a much better term in my opinion. Is that another one? You have that duo. Sweet. I'm so excited. I love comics. I love getting presents in the mail. I love the mail in general. I'm that person, but these are so cool. Thank you so much, Black Box. I know there's one on the bottom that I'm really excited to show you, which is why I started this way. So I'm going to keep going. Oh, man, this is like every single one of the variants for this series, which is cool. I hope this is the whole thing. There's 5 of them, so this may actually be issues 1 through 5 of Dr. Wilder. And I'm super stoked for this full art foil variant of Dream Master from our buddy Jonathan Hedrick. This is super cool. This was a book I could not keep in stock when it first launched. We had so many people who were picking this up because everybody at Bat City loves Jonathan Hedrick. And so I'm so stoked to have that. That is a cool foil, too. The fact that it's like, it has like that Disney D where it makes it dimensional backwards instead of dimensional forward, which I really dig that. Thank you again, Black Box, so much for sending those over, and thank you for not taping them to the Gemini mailer. I really appreciate that. I'm going to take another drink before we kick off, and I'm going to move this Dr. Wilder out of the way because I took that board out of it, and I don't want to... Oh, thank you, sir. I don't want to risk messing it up. All right, so we are going to kick off. We are going to count down these books from the series that's been running the longest to our number ones, back all the way down to our picks of the week, where we're going to talk about my favorite books from our indie and small press creators and publishers this week. So we're going to kick it off, though, starting with issue 15 of Kaya from Image Comics. This has been going on for a hot minute, and what I love about it is that it is still continuing to go. This is so great because we don't see a lot of all ages books that continue for more than 4 issues. And so the fact that we have this beautiful all ages book that is coming out and we're still going on issue 15, we've got 2 trade paperbacks already for the first 2 arcs. Like, this makes me so happy to see. And if you haven't read it yet, Kaya is the story of a young girl who was originally told in her childhood that she was going to be the chosen one, only to find out that it was actually her little brother. And so she's become the defender and protector of her little brother, which would have been easy if their entire village hadn't been destroyed. And so in issue 1, Kaya and her brother take off to go to this world where he's going to actually be able to train with the magic people who will help him use his magic as a chosen one to save everything. Only problem is that the world is vast and full of terrors. And so she is struggling to keep track of her brother. And in this arc, they've encountered the kingdom that is the one that they're kind of trying to stay away from as much as possible because there's an evil king that's in there. And they have found the cults of people who believe her brother is the chosen one, who have been waiting for him. And we're kind of seeing in this issue Kaya trying to build alliances and not really doing a great job of that, and also trying, like, seeing her brother, like, maybe if I am the chosen one, like, maybe it's time I step up and act like I am. And that kind of putting them a little bit at odds too, because of course Kaya just wants to keep him safe and secure at all costs. And so this has been a really good series. I have subscribers as young as like 6 getting this book, and as old as like 45, 50 getting this book, because so many people have just fallen in love with the art or the characters. And so no matter your age, this is, like I said, a great all ages series that just keeps going. Love Everlasting, issue 12 from Image Comics. This is one of my favorite things Tom King has ever done, which is really hard to say because everything that Tom King has ever done is probably somewhat, like, it's just a list of, like, in order of his books. But this one is all about a woman who wants to find the perfect love story. She just wants to believe that it's out there for her somewhere. And as she does experience love, she ends up finding the perfect person for her. And then somebody shows up, this random cowboy stranger shows up and kills her every time she gets to the happiest point in her relationship. In the last arc, we actually got to see what it would look like if she did marry somebody and just kind of got stuck in that relationship and it wasn't what she wanted. And this arc has actually taken the point of view of the cowboy, who has been a mysterious stranger for us the entire series, who just shows up to kill Joan when it's time. And so getting to actually see his story and how he connects to her and how he ended up in this position of being the mysterious cowboy has made this story that was already fantastic even better. It's like the fact that you could make your secondary background character actually one of your main characters in 3 issues, and make those 3 issues some of the best issues in your entire 12-issue run so far is just proof that Tom King knows what he's doing and is a great writer. But if you have not been picking this up, and you're a fan of all the romance books and traditional pub, like, this is a great book for you to be picking up. And if you are somebody who's like, I don't like romance books and I'm going to avoid that book at all costs, know that you're going to miss out on a really great story, because you got that intrigue and mystery and that Tom King heart that blends all into that. So you definitely need to check it out. Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, issue 12 from Boom Studios. This is another star-crossed lovers, it's not working out for you kind of story about 2 kids who live in a post-apocalyptic world. One of them who's been trained to be what they call a wasteland ranger, who knows all the rules about how to survive in this, and the other who has been living in his ivory tower quite literally and doesn't know how to survive. And they have worked together over the course of the series to build a perfect utopia for themselves and kind of like find other people and keep them safe. But if you read the series, you know that in issue 1 we got this teaser for the future. And it was not very good. It was very, very grim. There was no love lost between these characters. They were so mad at each other and bad things were happening. And we have now in this arc finally gotten to that future where we are going to see why Mezzi and Masio are at odds against each other and what it is that they're actually trying to do and accomplish in this crazy world. And this issue definitely left us wondering if anybody can actually survive this world, and has everybody just kind of gone off the deep end. Nobody's got like a full bag of marbles, so to say, that they're functioning with in this story, and yet they are all so smart and so full of great decision making at times that you're just like, can we get this together? It's amazing. It's a wonderful book. You should definitely check it out. They actually made my list of best couples last year for the Batastic Awards. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures issue 10 from IDW. If you are a fan of the Ninja Turtles cartoon from the 90s, you should be reading this comic, because it is essentially just episodes of that show in comic form. We're continuing the story and bringing you new episodes. And in issue 9, Shredder and Leonardo got sucked back in time from some poor decision making and on Shredder's part. And the 2 of them are now in feudal Japan. And so the other turtles have been working to kind of figure out how they're going to save Leonardo and also stop the Shredder, because he's up to something. And what he's up to is trying to collect this magical sword that can essentially just do whatever he wants it to do. And they think that they've got a plan to save Leonardo, but they don't even know what Shredder's up to yet. And so we get some hijinks. We get some hilarity. We get a lot of heart. It's a perfect Ninja Turtles episode. And so this series of it has gone on to where we actually get cliffhangers like it's a season of the show. So while some of them will be complete standalones, every 2 or 3 issues, it's got a connecting story. And so 9, 10, and it looks like at least 11 are going to connect. So if you are going to pick it up and read it, know that at least those 3 you need to kind of get together. Ghost Lore, issue 8 from Boom Studios. If you ever wanted to know what it was like to see Ghost, this is a really, really great look at that. This is all about a young girl and her dad, and they're very, very conflicting personalities. She is kind of against the church, and he is the pastor of the church. And in issue 1, they get into a car accident that completely changes their lives and their dynamic. Kind of just goes on hyperdrive of their hatred for each other, because they both find out that they can hear and speak to ghosts. And she understands that the only way that these ghosts can move on is if you listen to their stories and you help them resolve that floating energy that they still have. And he's like, I don't believe in this. I don't want to help these people and things like that. Well, so now we find out that there are 2 opposing forces. There is a cult of bad people and essentially a cult of good people who are trying to help these ghosts in their own way or use these ghosts for their own good. And they kind of have to figure out what sides they're on and who's running them and what's going to happen. And Dad's kind of starting to realize that there's more to life than just being a big jerk, which is what he's kind of been so far. And maybe he needs to use what he knows to actually be there for his child. And so we're going to see how this plays out. So far, he's on his little redemption track, hopefully right now. But man makes some questionable decisions at every turn, so he might not get there. And we just got a new character introduced in this issue that is super dark and sinister, and I really want to know what her story is going to really fully be. Up next, we have Antarctica, issue 8 from Image and the Top Cow imprint. This is been a crazy story that's taken us in several different directions. It started out with us finding that a young girl wanted to essentially get to Antarctica because that's the place that she last knew her father was supposed to be. He was a research scientist and she wanted to join him, and so she ends up getting there, only to find out that essentially there is a rift between parallel dimensions in Antarctica. And we've seen her kind of trying to battle with these people and what's going on over the course of a few issues, but now we're actually getting this backstory, and so we are learning what the dad was up to, who he was working with, how these people are connected. And so in this arc of the story, we're in that past, and we're just really learning what built out this thing. And I'm really curious to see how they're going to tie all of this into what we had in the first couple issues, because she's got so few memories and such clouded, weird backstory for herself. And so us getting to see this and have more knowledge of what her situation actually is and what this past is and what this place is, has been really cool. The Ribbon Queen, issue 7 from AWA. I falsely told you on our live 5 that this was the last issue because I thought that it was out of 7, but it is out of 8. And I am very excited about that because I need one more issue for this to be just completely wrapped up in the best way. But if you haven't jumped into The Ribbon Queen yet, this is the story of a woman who was attacked by some people and was being forced into, really nefarious things that she didn't want to do. And the police officers that saved her ended up actually being worse than the people who were originally abusing her. And they have started their own sex trafficking ring, and they're using their police behavior to keep them off the radar. And she ends up killed before issue 1 ever starts. And so we are actually following a detective who suddenly has the ability to see this woman's ghost. I'm going to show you this grossness. This woman's ghost, and they are trying to solve this murder together. Well, enter the Ribbon Queen, who is the spirit of a scorned woman who has basically come back to, over time, to just really make sure that when women are wronged, they get their revenge in the most graphic Garth Ennis level way possible. And we have started to figure out who the Ribbon Queen is. We got a backstory of the Ribbon Queen issue 5. And now we're starting to figure out what her plan is and how she finds her host and what is going to happen. And we're going to see if our detective can wrap all of this up in the next issue. And we're going to see where these choices lead everybody in the story. And this one was just great. You got like the Daredevil hallway scene, except with a spirit that rips you apart and literally turns you into ribbons. So it was kind of awesome. The Cole, issue 5 from Image Comics. This is the wrap-up of this arc, possibly this story, if it wants to leave us on the worst modern American ending, open ending ever, but also a great one. This is all about a bunch of kids who are determined they're trying to make a movie, but one of the kids who's supposed to be a part of the process is like, I'm also actually just looking for my little brother. I know he went out in this weird direction. We are going to figure out where he went and what happened. And when they go to look for the little brother, they end up actually in a alternate dimension, and they find that there's these creepy beings, and they get all these powers, and then they finally make their way out, and they get back to the Earth, only to find out that all of the creepy beings have kind of taken over the Earth, and they're attacking it, and they're like, oh my gosh, we have to save our families. And so they start fighting to save their families and working to do that. And in this issue, we learn some really big things about what's happened on this Earth and what it would look like you know, based off of what these kids are going to put together. And I really, really hope, Kelly Thompson, if you're watching this at any point in time, that you do not leave this where you left it, because that is cruel and unusual punishment. It is so good, and the ending is such a cool ending, and yet if you leave it there, I'm going to be so sad. And yet also kind of just applaud you for the amazing cliffhanger that exists at the end of this issue. But if you haven't read it yet and you like sci-fi, you like things like Super 8, if you're a fan of that movie, this is a great comic for that kind of fandom. Exo Man of War issue 6 from Valiant and Alien Books. This is Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad's book that had started earlier last year and then got a big delay as Valiant was switching parent companies, essentially. But it is back now, and they are going to finish it up. And so if you haven't read it, essentially our hero, our Exo Man of War, he is captured by the new Romans who are on a spaceship in the future, and they are trying to get the Man of War suit off of him so that they could use it to conquer everyone. And of course, the thing with the Exo Man of War is that he's always hated the Romans because he's been fighting them for centuries, and this is always ends up being a bad thing. In this issue, he has teamed up with their sorcerer and their seer, and is trying to find the power that it'll take for him to stop them, in hopefully indefinitely. Like, he wants to really just conquer these people and be done with it. And we see how this power is developed and what it's going to take to do it, and sacrifices are going to have to be made. So if you're an Exo Man of War fan, this is honestly one of the deepest stories that I've seen. Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad are such a great team when they're writing together, and you've got Liam Sharp on art. So you're just really getting a high-quality Exo Man of War story if you haven't checked it out yet. Find those original 5 issues and jump in. Talks, issue 5 from Blood Moon Comics and their Panico Press. This is the conclusion of the first arc. I am so excited to say that. We are going to get a second arc of Talks, and also that we're getting a second arc of a Blood Moon book. So many times we kind of just get these little mini-series from them, and the fact that this one is going to continue, I'm so excited to see and be able to report that. But this is the story of Claire, who is in a post-apocalyptic world that, I guess it's actually just in the apocalypse. And it's very apocalyptic, kind of Mad Max Fury Road-ish, in that the sun is the danger to everybody, and there's not really any supplies or anything. And everybody who gets too much time in the sun actually radiates and turns into these crazy mutants. And so everybody's moved to an underground world, and nobody's supposed to be able to survive. But for some reason, Claire doesn't really have the effect that everybody else does when she spends too much time in the sun. Not only that, but Claire is the first person to get pregnant since the apocalypse began. And so, of course, everybody's after her baby. They want to know what that means. They want to know what's special about her. And they are going to get her. And in this issue, she's been on the run the last few issues. And we kind of see not only the people that come to help her, but we also get to see the inspiration she can cause for other people who are hearing her story back at home. And so we might actually get some rebellion and revolution really coming our way in the next arc, which I'm very excited about. If you didn't read this and you are a fan of Mad Max Fury Road or Tank Girl or any of those apocalyptic stories like that, this is definitely one to pick up. This is a fan favorite here at Bat City, so don't miss it. The Devil That Wears My Face, issue 4 from Mad Cave. This book is wild. I was literally at a bar last night, and people were talking to me, came up to me to talk to me about this book, which I think is so cool, to just have that experience in general. But I love when it's hey, I know we're not at a comic book store, but can we talk about how great a comic book is? Yes, you can always stop me and talk to me about how great comics are. It's my favorite. But this is essentially the Count of Monte Cristo and the Exorcist mixed together. A priest goes to perform an exorcism on a person only to have the priest get stuck in the body of the person who was possessed, and the demon get inside of the priest, and then goes back and basically is I'm going to take over the church from inside the Vatican. And this guy that's inside this other kid's body now is I have to like become something that can get me into that city, that will get me the focus of the priest and the Vatican and the Pope and everything. And so he Count Monte Cristo's his life a little bit, building up himself, and is now in the city again, trying to directly face to face go against the demon that is after him and after the whole world through the church. And in this issue, we saw a big cliffhanger in issue 3, and this one's kind of the play out of how that's going to work. And we learn that even though there's no demon in this priest's body, a lot of the demon rules are starting to apply to him, and things might not be looking so hot for him to get his body back. And the demon is getting some power that we don't want the demon to have. If you like anything that's got like the demons and the exorcists and like religious horror, this is going to be a great one for you. Simon says, issue 4 from Blood Moon. This is a crazy kind of serial killer story, kind of demon possession story. Simon, we learn, that is such crazy. I'm going to show you this insane picture. Simon, we learn, is possibly being possessed by an ancient like demon spirit or an ancient warrior spirit, and he is, you know, forced to hear these voices that tell him what he should be doing. And usually what they want him to do is to kill people. And we kind of thought in the very beginning that maybe Simon was just having a differential personality disorder, differential identity disorder. But at this point, we've learned that there is some long history to what is happening to Simon, and there are a lot of people who are looking for him and are looking for him to kind of lean into what it is that is happening to him so that they can use it for their own purposes. And we're going to see what exactly Simon does and who he decides to team up with as the story continues. But it gets a little darker every issue. Like every issue, he seems to accept a little bit more of this darkness in him. And so we're going to see just how far Simon can go. The Space Between, issue 4 from Boom Studios. This has been a really cool way to use the comic medium because every issue jumps ahead a couple, like sometimes decades, sometimes a couple years. This issue is 112 years post the last issue, essentially. And it's all about a group of people, a group of Earthlings. Like, we needed to get off of Earth, so they built a space station, and they have been traveling to this new planet that they're supposed to curate to become their new home. And we've seen, you know, the politics of famine. We've seen the politics of the upper class being classist and elitist towards the working class on the ship. We've seen love stories in every issue, which I think is really cool because not only is it the space between, meaning we're in space, but it's always the space between two different people and the relationships that they develop. And in this one, we have now finally reached the planet that we're supposed to go to. And there are a lot of people who are like, hey, going to this planet would be really, really bad. Like, we should just stay on the ship forever. Let's not go. And they start to try to essentially orchestrate a rebellion and convince the leaders that they don't want to go. Well, the two scientists who have been in charge of making sure that everything gets curated are like, if they don't go, we're all gonna die. Like, there's not enough supplies on here to keep everybody going. And so they have to come up with their own plan, essentially, because nobody's listening to them, to convince people that the only way to survive is to get off the ship. And their plan is so, like, well thought out and yet terribly unthought out all at the same time that it gives you a lot of those Romeo and Juliet vibes of like, did anybody actually have a conversation with anybody else where they determined that this was not a good idea? Like, can y'all talk amongst yourselves and make something better of this plan? And yet it makes for such a great, beautiful story. And again, the space between being that double meaning that we're going to talk about the relationships between people, and like, no matter where we go, whether we're on Earth or we're on a spaceship or we're on a new planet, like, there's always going to be this human element, and this misconnect/connection between people works so well and so beautifully. Really, really great story. If you didn't read it, grab all 4 issues that are out and read it immediately because it's really well done. Nomad the Unconquerable, The Cave of the Broken Tombs, issue 4. This is volume 2 of Nomad from Battle Quest Comics. I highly recommend that if you are going to read this, that you do read volume 1. I think I've been told that there are people who are reading this volume 2 and are enjoying it without the recap, because they did a really good recap of the story in issue 1 of this volume. But I think you fully understand Nomad and what he's going through. You probably want to read volume 1, because volume 1 took us on the journey of who Nomad was and the powers that he needed to create to protect his people and keep them safe. And in the process, he left his son at home while he went to go figure out, like, if this alien race essentially was attacking the other people and if there was a way to save them. And now he's returned home and he needs his son, who's now pretty much an adult on his own, to come back and fight with him. And also, on top of that, the fight is coming to them, so they're having to protect their homeland while also protecting these people that they're the sworn protectors of. And the son is kind of learning, my dad isn't exactly the hero that I made him out to be this whole time, but, like, he is in a different way. And so you just have that relationship between father and son that's really starting to develop in this, and it works so well if you did read that first volume. But it's also just a really beautiful story between these two, and I absolutely love this blue scale, which I'm starting to see a little bit more and more in comics right now. But I love the way it works for just bringing that detail out in this story. Honestly, come pick one up and just look at the art. Or go to your local comic shop and just look at the art on it. It's going to be one of those that really draws you in for that reason alone. Guma, the beginning of her, issue 3 from Titan Comics. And this is our first moment where we get to see the horrorness that is coming with this book. I've been talking about this on this live stream, and I've been like, it keeps saying it's a horror book. I don't really know. It doesn't feel like one. Well, we're going to see that now. So if you haven't started on Guma yet, it is about a brothel, essentially, where women are told you can earn your money to get your way out of here. And there's 2 women who are roommates. One who is very, very big on her religion, and she had a daughter with the guy in charge of the brothel, and he's kept that kid and is like, this is my daughter now, it's not your daughter. And she ends up getting money from the friend and saying, like, the roommate is like, you can leave, you can go, and it doesn't work out for either of them in the way that you would think it would. And in this issue, we see the comeback, essentially, of what they're going to do to make it work out. And now we've got a little bit of a horror, a little bit of a revenge, and a lot is about to change for this whole group of people. And so I don't want to spoil too much of what happens, but if you're looking for something where you get that revenge in the most, like, satisfying way, and you also get to have a little bit of a horror element to it, much kind of like the Ribbon Queen, this is going to be a great one for that, because it's got all of that in there. And it does kind of, being that it's Ji-Hung Lee that's writing and drawing it, you get a lot of the art really telling the story. And it makes for really cool transitions when artists do that. Haunted House, a love story, issue 3 from Blood Moon Comics. Okay, first thing to know about this before, if you did grab this book this week, there is a misprint. The first page is actually a page from later in the story, so just, like, skip that page and jump in. I believe they're going to be doing reprints, so talk to your local comic shop about that. But this story has been so much fun in the weirdest, creepiest way possible. This is the story of a house that fell in love with its builder, and it just wanted to have a happy, wonderful relationship. The builder grew old in the house. They had their long, happy, alone time, wonderful story. Love story builds out, kind of becomes a little of a obsessive, very, very, like, toxic relationship. And then we move on. It's years later, and in issue 2 we get a new couple and a new family and new people living there. And now in issue 3 we are at another group of people, and they are kind of at odds. They're not really agreeing. It's happening during the stock market crash of 1929, and it's a married couple who doesn't have any children, and his parents are very much, you have to have children, you have to be a family, you have to do all of this. And the tension that they already have, the house leans into and tries to force it as a way to either connect with them or get them out. And so we get a lot of angry house pushing on these people. And again, if you ever wonder, like, why am I in my house? Like certain parts of my house make me feel like crazy. I feel like this issue specifically really leaned into that. It was like, hey, have you ever had those moments where you feel like something bad is going on in your house? This issue is here to remind you, like, maybe don't believe it. Beneath the Trees Where No One Sees, issue 3 from IDW. You all bought issue 1. I hope that you read it. I know that it was going for like $60 on eBay, and so a lot of people bought it for that reason, but do yourselves a favor and actually read this book because it is so fantastic. It is essentially Dexter with adorable animals. So it's adorable Dexter, which is so great, but it is about a bear whose name is Samantha, and she runs the local hardware store in her town. Samantha also happens to be a serial killer, but she is smart about it, and she doesn't kill people where she lives because A, those are her friends, and B, she doesn't want to get caught. Well, in issue 1, suddenly people are starting to get murdered in her town, and she's like, A, I don't want my friends to die, but also B, if people start looking into murderers in town, they may figure out that I'm a serial killer. So the only thing Samantha can do is the logical thing of investigating the murder herself, which actually kind of puts Samantha as a target in and of itself because people keep seeing Samantha do weird things. In this issue, at the end of issue 2, she kind of has an idea who she thinks it is. And so in this one, she is on her investigation and she is following the clues. And we learn some secrets about the town. And basically we learn that no matter who you are, like everybody has something that is secretive about them that they don't want everybody in the world to know. And sometimes that's wholesome at the end of the day, which we see with some of the characters, and sometimes it's not. And we're going to get to know everybody in town, I have a feeling, as Samantha continues to do this investigation. But we're going to see if she can find that murderer before they find her. And it's so good. Dark Spaces Dungeon, issue 3, also from IDW. This is from the Dark Spaces imprint, which is Scott Snyder's imprint for IDW, all about just different horrible places where bad things happen. And in Dungeon, we are actually, I love these panels because this is Hayden Sherman, of course, so you get some crazy weird panels on the very first page. Dungeon is all about a man who kidnaps people and locks them into these weird small dungeons that he buries or hides around America in different places. And in the very first issue, a man is running and he trips over something and it's like a little hatch, and they figure out that it's one of these dungeons. And thankfully there's nobody in there, but a detective is like, that's because I was the kid that was in there. And they see some clues that lead them to believe that these dungeons are still going. And this man has more people, and so they start investigating, and they start getting notices to this man this rich man who lived on that property. And so now he's worried that something bad is going to happen to his family. And spoiler alert, some bad things are starting to happen to his family. And so they've got some limited time to solve this case before it's too late. And this issue, we actually find out some background information about this person, and we're starting to figure out little bits and pieces of who is the serial killer or serial collector, really, because it's not even that he's killing the people so much that he's collecting them and keeping them, and we're kind of starting to learn why and how he's doing that. And it is intense. There's a lot that Scott Snyder is pouring into this, and if you it almost feels like if you're, for people who liked Black Phone, like if you liked that there's this weird serial killer in town and he just kind of takes people in and you get to see what it's like to be one of those people. This kind of gives you a little bit of that, except you're following the one person who got away, who's now trying to figure out how to save everybody else. So really cool, interesting take from Scott Snyder. And again, you have Hayden Sherman art, so you always get these really cool panelings, which works really well because all the dungeons are done in like these different styles. And so he tries to make the paneling match the dungeon styling that they're talking about or they're investigating, which is really a crazy cool way to do that. Time Traveler Tales, issue 3 from Dark Horse. This is another great all ages book. This is very much for the younger readers. It is about a kid who has the ability to travel through time, except he doesn't really understand it or the how or the why. And in issue 1, he kind of like wakes up in a new time and he's like, I just know I need to find this clock. I don't really know why. I don't know what's going on. In issue 2, he ends up in a different time. He's on the same case trying to figure it out. Well, here in issue 3, we finally get some backstory about that when we run into the spirits of all the other kids who used to be time travelers who are no longer alive. And they kind of explain the rules of time travel. They explain why he has this power. They explain why it's really, really important that he finds whatever his clock is, which doesn't necessarily mean a clock. And we learn that there are these dark, like, time wraiths essentially coming after him, and if he doesn't stop things and before they get to him, the whole world could be destroyed. Great adventure for kids, fun for all ages to pick up, but definitely a good one to share with the younger readers. I'm going to take a drink of my William Wright Pinot Noir. Because we are flying through these books, man. Bloodrick, issue 3 from Image Comics. This is the end of Bloodrick. And this is the story about a barbarian named Bloodrick who is on his own. This is so wicked. He's on his own in this wilderness, essentially. And he's trying to find food. And in the first issue, he's like, everything is covered in snow. He ends up fighting a bear. In the second issue, he sees a lantern light kind of thing. And he's like, oh, I'm going to go. I'm just going to keep showing all the crazy ones. I'm going to go chase this light down. He gets to this village, and this village is all destroyed. There's no people there. And he's like, what is going on? Well, so in this issue, he finally figures out what is going on. And there's this guy who's like, hey, I'm doing this dark magic. You need to surrender to me and to my people and do whatever it is we want. And I promise you, like, if you do, I'll give you food and I'll give you what you need. And Bloodrick's like, I don't trust you. I don't like you. I don't need you. And so they get this big fight going on in here as Bloodrick tries to figure out, oh God, I'm just going to show you what is happening. And then once Bloodrick kind of figures all that out, he's like, oh yeah, I still need food and I still need to figure out what's going on in the rest of the world and like if I'm going to make it. This is a fantastic, like, just 3-issue mini. The creator of it had been really excited to put this book out, said he's been working on it for a really, really long time. So you always get a little, like, front story. It's a recap on the inside cover that's a drawn recap, and then you always get a little backup story that's just about some more times in Bloodrick's life, and I'm going to flip to that really fast. Like, that's just somebody telling us about a day in the life of Bloodrick. He talks about possibly doing more. I hope he does. It's fun to just see this art style and what Bloodrick is up to, and just the adventures of this crazy barbarian who may or may not be the only human left. Crave, issue 3. Can I show you this cover? Okay, yes. This is from Maria Levitt, and it's very mature. I'm going to tell you that from the beginning. This is very mature, so there might not be much that I can show you. I think I can show you this page. It's mostly just kissing. This is all about a bunch of college students who get an app downloaded automatically on their phone, and it's like, hey, whatever you crave, I can make it happen. And so they start doing that, and it's like, oh, I crave breaking up with my boyfriend, and they're like, well, this is how you do it. And the app walks you through how to do all the terrible things that you want to do. And so most of them, because they're college students, use the app to try to hook up with all the people that they've always wanted to hook up with. And that creates a lot of problems for a lot of people. Meanwhile, our main character's roommate was like, hey, whatever you do, don't use the Crave app. I gotta go. It's too dangerous. Nobody should use it. And nobody listened to him because they all wanted what they wanted. And now we're in a whole mess of trouble, and they are like, oh, this could be it. We're starting to see that this is actually a bad thing. Maybe we should reach out to our friend who said not to do it. And so now they're finally starting to investigate and figure out if maybe, just maybe, they should believe him and look into it. Again, very, very mature title. All the pages that I'm skipping are because there's a lot of nudity. So if you are under the age of 18, this book is not for you. But if you are an adult and you're looking for a psychological thriller that is very, like, mature based. This is going to be a crazy fun. I really want to know. Like, the first issue actually made it into my picks of the week because it was so cool how they rolled the app out and how everybody was getting into it and all this stuff. Like, it was either in my picks or like that one like closest to my picks because I liked it so much. It's really a cool concept for a story. Addams Family, Charlatans Web, issue 2 from IDW. This is an ongoing anthology series that's going on for the Addams Family, much like your Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventure kind of thing. Issue 1 gave us the start of 2 stories, and issue 2 wraps up those stories. And the first one is all about a local company coming in that's called Better We, and it's supposed to be one of those happy gyms, places that makes everybody feel great about themselves and ends up brainwashing everybody in town. They all start wearing these pink polos and drinking coffee and just all having the same exact personality. And of course, Wednesday and Pugsley are like, this is awful. We have to do something about this and save everybody. And so they gather up all of the people who have not been corrupted by this brainwashing, and they build an elaborate plan to terrify the creators of Better We and try to get them to admit that they're awful people and kind of wipe that mind controlling from all of these people. Classic Addams Family hijinks ensue. You get all the fun stuff, and it's funny because of course in that one, like, Uncle Fester shows up and they're like, oh no, Uncle Fester's here. He's not a part of this mission, though. And then in the second issue, second half of the story, the first issue had these 2 people trying to rob the Addams. And of course, if you've ever seen the Addams Family, you know that they never register that people are trying to rob them. And they're always so kind and just invite them in. And it scares the people. That is exactly what happens in this. And so this is the wrap-up of that story as the 2 people are just trying to get out of the Addams Family house and just reform if they have to, whatever it takes. And you get, again, crazy Addams Family hijinks with the cat, which is a lion, and Uncle Fester and Pugsley and Wednesday and all the fun things that come with that. It has all of the feelings of both the classic TV show and the classic comic strip. So if you are, and it looks like the new movie, the new animated movie. So if you're a fan of any of those Addams properties, you're really, really going to like this series because it does give you that original feeling, but with that new movie art. Count Crowley, Mediocre Midnight Monster Hunter, issue 2 from Dark Horse. This is volume 2 of the Count Crowley story. So if you didn't read the first one, pick that up probably, but you can jump in because it does give you a nice little recap, which is about a woman who really wants to, like, has been basically predetermined to be the next monster hunter and kind of take over. And of course, nobody believes in her because she's a woman and they're all extremely sexist pigs. And so they're like, you can't possibly be the new monster hunter. Like, we don't believe that women can handle this. Like, you need to get out of here. And she's like, well, right now I'm the only person doing it. And all of you have been either gone or have not helped anybody. And so in volume 1, she was like, I took over and I started doing it. And now you need to train me and you need to let me actually have a role in this. And so in this volume, she's kind of piecing that together, and she's having to work with an old original who really doesn't like her. And then, speaking of Black Phone, we get a story of a monster that she may be having to hunt down in the future, but the paths have not crossed yet, of a guy who shows up in an ice cream man style van with a bunch of creepy masks and essentially tries to use them as a way to kidnap the children. And we're going to see how these two stories intersect probably in the next issue and see if this is a monster that she's going to have to stop and if she's going to be able to, and if they're ever actually going to fully train her on who she's supposed to be other than just the Count Crowley TV show host. Charred Remains, issue 2 from Mad Cave. This is the story of a woman who, when she was a kid, witnessed a fire burning everything down, kind of took out her whole family situation. And so now she, as an adult, lives with her uncle and has this fear of somebody that she calls the fireman. And it's literally a man in the fire that causes all fire to happen. And in this, in the end of the first issue, a friend of hers was living in a safe home that was one of those like, oh, we take care of everybody, that's our mission kind of situation. and the home has a fire, and she's like, oh my God, it was the fireman. It was awful. You have to do something about it. And so now she's kind of reignited her investigation and her attempt to stop this fireman, and ends up discussing it with a friend of hers who's kind of been around her whole life, who is a fireman. And he's like, hey, I'm a firefighter. Let me do this my way. I'm a fire investigator. There's no man in the fire. But he started having these dreams in this issue that kind of lead him to believe that maybe he's been wrong this whole time. And we're going to see exactly how the two of these people really piece it all together. And I love the way Andrea Moody's art kind of leads into those smoky scenes where you're like, I can't tell if there's supposed to be something in there or if I'm imagining it in there because of the dark shapes and things like that. Really makes for a great blend to the story and the art coming together. But Charred Remains, Fire Mystery. We've got Gone, issue 2 from Distillery and Jock. Jock is doing the writing and the art on this story and this cover, actually, which is really cool. And can I open it up because it's kind of a wraparound?
Yeah.
Okay. It's got like a spaceship that's flying like on the backside, which is kind of cool. Towards the image, which I like. But if you didn't read Gone, this is the story of a young girl who lives in a town in a future where the world is, the rich people have all the food, the poor people are living outside of the cities, not able to get what they need. And she keeps doing these little raids where she goes in and steals stuff from the soldiers and the town workers who are coming in. And she ends up aligning herself with some people who are like, hey, we're going to go on this big raid. Well, she gets stuck on the ship. And it turns out they actually weren't trying to raid it. They were trying to take this ship down. But they all get stuck on this ship. And now she's lost in space, essentially, with these people. And she's trying to figure out how to survive, but also how to get back because she left her mom alone. And she's worried that her mom might have had a new baby that she was pregnant with. And she's not going to have the resources she needs. And that was the whole reason she was trying to rob the ship in the first place, was because she was just trying to bring food to her people in her community. Well, in this issue, as she finally comes face to face with some of the administration on the ship, she learns there is a big thing that connects her to the whole process of this ship, and she's not very happy about how that's going to work out for her. And we're not either. You get very angry for her. You're like, no, this is totally unfair. We're going to see what happens. She's very vengeful. She's very ready to get back to her mom. She's determined, and she's got that survivalist instinct, but she also has that, I have to also get even with the bad people that are attacking me before I do that. So if you haven't read it yet, this is really good. I love Jock's art. And I've been really enjoying him as a writer on the last couple things he's done. And I think that Jock's art needs this prestige format IMAX. So I'm happy to see that he is getting that with Distillery. All right, we got some one-shots that I'm throwing in here before I get to the number ones that I'm really excited about. It's Valentine's Day, so we've got the Godzilla Valentine's Day special. This is connected to like the style of your Godzilla rivals that IDW's been doing. So it's not your young reader, it's more of your like teen and up kind of readers for that series. But this is the story of a girl who is working in a call center, and Godzilla attacks the community, and she ends up, her building gets crushed, and she's like, oh my God, like I almost died. And so instead of being like, I hate Godzilla, she decides that what she's going to do, because that's the most she ever felt alive, is that she's going to start hunting down kaiju, taking their pictures, and just kind of reporting on it off for her own blog site and giving people the information. Well, over the course of the time that she's doing this, she ends up meeting this other person who is like, you need to stop. Like, I'm from the people who are supposed to protect you. You're putting yourself in danger unnecessarily. You're putting us in danger unnecessarily because we're having to go look for you and save you. And she's like, you guys don't save me. Like, I saved myself. And we kind of just see every interaction for them over a period of time where they each go to try to fight these or find these dinosaurs, these kaiju. And so she's, you know, going to videotape them and document them, and he's going to make sure people are safe. And we get to just kind of see their relationship change and morph over time. And it's the cutest little Godzilla story, because Godzilla's movies and stories are about human relationships and how beautiful they can be in the world of giant monsters. And so really great. My Little Pony Classics Reimagined. This is a one-shot that recreates Romeo and Juliet in the My Little Pony world. And I love it immediately because they start to tell you the story of Romeo and Juliet, and Spike comes in. And if you don't know Spike, he's the little dragon in the My Little Pony world. He comes in and is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This story is awful. Like, people aren't listening to each other. Parents are forcing their kids to marry people. And also, like, these two kids are going to get married and then they're going to die. Like, this is not a pony appropriate story. So he's like, so we're going to mix it up. And it becomes two design houses, party houses, essentially. It's two groups that want to be the ones to create the perfect party for the pony world, because whoever does create the perfect party is going to get to throw the party for the princess and princess's birthday. And so they're fighting over who's going to be the perfect party planner. And in it, they're like, okay, well, what if we just combined our powers and we made a one party that was amazing, because you're really good at this and I'm really good at that. And of course, the ponies don't like it because Montagues and Capulets don't get along. And so we've got this little war that is brewing, and they have to come up with a way to solve the problem. And I love it because the narrator keeps saying references to the poison and all the things that Romeo and Juliet do. And Spike is like, we're not doing the poison, like every time it comes up. So it just keeps the humor going and gives you a little bit of that Romeo and Juliet story, but, you know, makes it acceptable for younger kids and pony lovers everywhere. Archie's Valentine's Day Spectacular from Archie Comics. This is our holiday tradition, where every holiday we get a new Archie Spectacular that just gives us so much fun and excitement for everybody who's an Archie fan. And you get multiple stories. The first one is always a new one, and this one introduces hearts, flowers, and candies, 3 of the spirits of Valentine's Day, very reminiscent of Trick and Treat, who came out for the Halloween episode, as Betty and Veronica are trying to figure out how to get the best present for Archie, and it does not go well. Then we have a story where Sabrina really wants to help Ethel because Jughead doesn't pay attention to her. And so Sabrina's like, what if I could make some, like Cupid, if I could summon Cupid, maybe he could help Ethel because I can't make people fall in love. But she ends up accidentally summoning a demon who is anti-love in relationships and starts breaking up everybody. And the only person who can help her is Jughead, because he's one of the only people who knows that witches exist, and only somebody who knows that witches exist can see the demon, so he's the only one that can help. And then we get another story, which has been in one of the digests before, about Veronica receiving a mysterious bunch of Valentine's Day cards, thinking she has a secret admirer, and trying to figure out who it is. And it does not work out the way Veronica thinks it's going to. And of course, Veronica's very grumpy about it when it doesn't work out her way. And then the last story, maybe we have 2 more stories. Oh yeah, we do. We have a couple more stories. But then there's a story that is all about the guys trying to play a prank on Jughead. So they tell him that this girl in town is the heir to a big, like, candy bag, some kind of food. I can't remember what it is. And they're like, oh, Jughead's only dating her and being respectful and being wonderful because he wants the food, but joke's on him because she doesn't actually have any connection to that. And then Pops figures out who she actually is, and then it's like, you guys thought you tricked Jughead, but it turns out Jughead's got the upper hand. And then we get a little math lesson about all the different shapes, a little geometry for you that you could have, and how you can have triangles for love, and you can have squares or rectangles or obtuses, and pentagons, and all kinds of things that you can have if you really put everybody's relationships together in Riverdale. It's just hilarious. But yeah, so if you are looking for just a cute, fun way to celebrate the holiday, this is obviously a great way to do that. Grit and Gears. This is a one-shot for them, and it is the war between the dames. I was like, what is this called? War between the dames. And so if you haven't read Grit and Garrus, you can actually kind of jump in right here and just see if it's something you like. And it is a world where automatons are they were our police, essentially, in this Old West, but also futuristic world. And Rosie has taken over. She is the leader of this world, and she is supposed to be keeping the clandestine nation safe for all the automatons. But some people show up, and they've got their own plans, and they start taking automatons in and just breaking them apart and turning them into machines that they can use for their own thing, their own gain. And Rosie's like, hey, that's not cool. I'm protecting these people. I am the one meant to keep them all safe, and I'm not going to let anything happen to them. And so Rosie goes to war against these two women who have come in to attack her people, and we get to see how that works out for Rosie as the three of them battle it out to protect what their own interests are. All right, and we got some new number ones. We got a couple new number ones. We've got Dark Souls, the Willow King, issue 1 from Titan Comics, and this is gotta be a video game. No, it's not. It's a novel series. I remember I looked it up. So this is a novel series being adapted into comics. If you know, they are currently doing the Wheel of Time, like Volume 2, because Titan does a lot of novel adaptations. So this is the Willow King adaptation from the Dark Souls line. And so you get a big introduction that kind of just tells you who the Willow King is, and we get the Lord of the Rings rundown of all the different types of beings that exist in this universe, and what the history of them are, where they come from, how they've separated, how they work together. You get all of that lore for the first half of the book before you actually get to kind of see some of your characters who are coming in specifically, and those who are going to be fighting for and against the Willow King. And so as in issue 1, this really just world builds in a big way, and it seems like, from what I've put together in this first issue, that the Dark Souls books have a very, very deep fantasy lore, and this is going to set up your story and get you started on that. So I have a lot of people who come in and they say, like, I'm a really big Lord of the Rings fan. Do you have anything like that in comic books? Are there any Lord of the Rings comics? This is the comic to suggest to anybody that's a fan of something like that. Or if you are a fan of that, this is the comic to pick up, because it feels so much like reading something like Lord of the Rings. So get ready to dive in for a really deep book with that. Thundercats issue 1 came out. I still have my copy from Dynamite. This is one of the hottest books of the week. In fact, this is the only copy that I have in the store right now. I might have a foil, but this is otherwise the only copy. And if you are a fan of the 1980s and you liked cartoons, which if you are from the 1980s, you like cartoons, that's just a thing, especially cartoons that had action figures, this is your time. There's just so many of your comics. There's so many of your cartoons being turned into comics in the best way. And this one starts at the beginning of them having to leave their home and getting put on a ship. And they fly out there, and while they're in there, essentially Lionel's, what is it, the freeze case that they put people in. They, in general, when you freeze somebody on a spaceship. Cryo tube. So the cryo tube gets broken, and Lionel ends up aging when he was actually just a child when they left. And so now Lionel is like, I'm in charge, but I was only supposed to be a kid, and I was supposed to have all this time to train, and I guess I have to get my people to safety. And they land on this planet, and he is trying to learn how to use the sword that's supposed to be, you know, the chosen one to carry and wield and protect his people. And as they are doing that, and they're trying to just figure out where they are, their ancient enemies come and start attacking them, and we are going to see some Thundercats battles. You actually get the moment where he says, like, Thundercats, ho, and, like, holds the sword up, and the call signal is there. You get all the moments that you want in this book. And so, and all the characters, everybody that you love, they're all here. Again, 80s kids, this is your time. Your cartoons have come back for you, and you're just watching them as episodes, essentially. And then we've got Blanche Goes to San Francisco, and this is, this I guess actually is a one-shot. I should probably put that in the one-shot section too. But this is the story of a woman named Blanche. It's 1923, and her father dies, and so she goes off to San Francisco just to figure out, how to get her life back and get started. She's a musician, so she's supposed to be playing music in California, and ends up getting a job for Houdini, and she's going to be the person who plays all the music during his shows. And she's really missing her dad, so she decides, I'm going to maybe attend a seance and see if I can figure it out. And she learns about this mystic, and she kind of asks Houdini, and he's like, I don't really know. I've heard of her, but I don't know if it's true or not. And so she ends up getting involved so that in the weirdest way in an investigation that's supposed to figure out if this woman is actually legitimate or a fraud, and if there's something else going on. If you want a slice of life story, this is going to be a really good one for that. It's just a girl trying to live her life. Like, she's literally like, oh, and then the next day, like, I did this. But you get that detective story at the same time, where it's like, oh, there's these people that I met, and they were kind of looking into her, and so I thought, well, maybe I can do my part. So you get a little intrigue mixed into that slice of life to give you a little bit more to go with the story. But I really enjoyed seeing what Blanche was up to, and seeing how she just kind of tumbled into a completely different life as she was trying to find out what was going on with her dad. All right, we've got some picks of the week. First up, we've got Pine and Merrimack, issue 2 from Boom Studios. Issue 1 was also in the picks of the week. This is the newest Kyle Starks, who I almost always love what Kyle is putting out. And this is about a couple. The woman in the group, the couple, was a former detective after tragedy happened in her life, and she was like, I'm going to become a detective. And then she realized she didn't want to work in homicide cases or anything that kind of reminded her of the trauma she faced. And in the process of doing her detective work back when she was on the force, she met a man who was a boxer. And they decided that they were going to get married and live happily ever after. And they open up their own detective service in the small town that she's from. And it's like, we're going to just do the simple cases. Like, this woman is possibly cheating on her husband. Or maybe, like, this person is evading their taxes. Just research and point people in the right direction kind of situation. Well, somebody comes to them and brings them a case that is actually the kind of case they normally wouldn't take. And they realize that they're the only people who can really solve it, and the only people who are willing to go up against the people who the case is about. So they got to do it. And so in this issue, they are breaking all of their rules and going hard on trying to stop something that is just might be a little too much for them. And they're not really sure if they're going to make it. But we get a little bit of, your detective work. You get a great little romance story. And you kind of get something mystical might be going on. All the things that Kyle Starks did a really good job of giving us. And I Hate This Place. We're getting a lot of that same feeling in this. And it's been a great start so far to this series. So definitely check that one out. They also made it on my favorite couples of last year after just one issue. They'll probably make it on this year too. All right, we got... I don't know which one I want to go with. Okay, we're going to go with Traveling to Mars. This is Traveling to Mars, issue 10 from Ablaze Comics. We have been on a long delay for this one, and I am so excited that Mark Russell has gotten this comic to us, and it always makes it worth it when we have to wait. If you don't know, Traveling to Mars is the story of a guy who didn't really have anything going on for it at all in his life, and ended up getting cancer, and he is approached by a corporation that's like, hey, we found out that there's resources on Mars. Nobody's claimed Mars yet. If we get up there and do it for our corporation first, then we own all of the resources. So we're going to pay you to get on a spaceship. We'll give your family the money. You're not going to make it back. It's a one-way trip. But you're dying anyway. So, what does it matter? Just get some money for your mom, and deal with it. So he ends up doing that. And he's had this he's had these 2 little robot droids with him. And he's developed friendships with them. And he's just had a lot of time to think about everything he did or did not do with his life. And the one thing that he's always thinking about is the woman that he loved, that he made some wrong decisions with, and she ended up leaving him. And in this one, we really get to see a lot of what that story was. Not just about the surface level that he's been giving us, but we actually get to deep dive into that. And we get to learn about the value of connections. I don't want to spoil that. we get to learn about the value of connections, and we get to learn about how, you know, he has these moments where he evaluates like humanity in general, and he's kind of like, this is my connection, this is my relationship, and this is how I messed it up. And this is kind of how we all do that, and how we all kind of overdo the whole world situation. And he has this really great quote in here that I shared on my own personal social media this week that I just want to share, that says, I learned that our brains contain 69 billion neurons, which can combine in so many patterns that our brains can form more thoughts than there are atoms in the universe. Before we even leave the breakfast table, our lives contain more possibilities than the universe could ever hold, which we'd realize if we ever stopped worrying for 1 second. So who cares about the space and the doom and the eons of cosmic indifference that will follow? What is time? What is space when compared to the infinite galaxy within? And so I just wanted to share that, because that for me was one of the reasons this was a pick of the week this week, because you have the ability, you contain an infinite amount of possibilities within yourself if you just believe in it and you don't worry about it and you just go for it. It's like Alice in Wonderland says, you know, I sometimes believe 6 impossible things before breakfast. Well, Mark Russell did the math, and you actually believe way more than that. So trust yourself and go out and do good things. And lastly, we've got The One Hand, issue 1, from Image Comics, and this is Ram V's new title, and I'm very excited about this. This is your gritty detective story for sure. This is all about a man who is supposed to be retiring. He is a detective who has been on the force for a long time. He's surly, he's gruff, it's over, he's got to get out. And on the day, like, he's had his cake, he's supposed to be packing his stuff up and walking out the door. And in the process, he sees them bring in a case file, and everybody's hushed and they won't look at him, and they're talking, and he's like, what is it? And they're like, it looks like the one-hand man is back. And he's like, it can't be. And they're like, it is. And so he is like, well, I'm not retiring then. I'm taking this case. And they're like, you already had your cake. Once you have the cake, you're done. He's like, nope, I'm on this case. And we find out that over the course of his career, he had actually had this one-hand man attack years and years ago, and he solved the case and put the person in prison only years later to have essentially the same crimes happen completely with details they never released to the public. And he caught the guy, and he's once again, and then only to have now, here we are, what is going on. And so we are going to see what this cycle is, what is happening, and can he solve this, and where is it going to go? And so Ram V is such a good writer. He's always just builds these great characters who take an archetype essentially and then twist it and turn it just enough that you're like, this feels really fresh and new. And we are going to get a really great detective story out of this, and yet I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of twists and turns that are going to bring us into a whole new world that we hadn't planned for with all the detective stories we're seeing. It is a great time to be a fan of detective stories right now in comics too, because we are getting a lot of them, and they're all fantastic. This crime genre is really on the rise. All right, that is all I have for you for picks and everything. I'm going to fly through everything else that's in stock right now and get you excited for even more books. So we have House of Slaughter, issue 21, ash cans to get you ready for the House of Slaughter. This matches the Something is Killing the Children ash can. That was black, but you get the purple to go with the House of Slaughter. We've got Walking Dead Deluxe issue 82. These are the color reprints of the entire Walking Dead series for those of you who missed it or just always wanted to read it in color. Thanos issue 3 from Marvel Comics. I've had so many people who are like, I didn't know Thanos had a series right now. Thanos has a series right now. Get on it. Suicide Squad Kill Arkham issue 1. This is in a polybag because it does go with the Suicide Squad Kill Arkham video game, and there are codes available in it. So if you're playing that game, grab that to get some secret stuff. Shazam issue 8 as a part of your Dawn of DC. We've got Robotech Rick Hunter issue 3 from Titan Comics. We've got Saucer Country. This is the finale. This is a book that came out a long time ago, never had an ending. They are bringing out the ending for you now. Red Hood. This is the Hill issue 0 that's going to lead into some stuff that's coming up for Red Hood. You're definitely want to grab that if you are a Red Hood fan. Kneel Before Zod issue 2. it's crazy to see like a whole Zod book, especially like the Superman universe is just getting bigger and bigger again at DC, and so it's fun to see so much of that coming back. Fire and Ice, Welcome to Smallville, issue 6. We've got, it's Valentine's Day, so we've got our DC holiday exciting thing, and we've got DC's How to Lose a Guy Gardner in 10 Days. It's all your favorite romantic comedies redone with DC characters in all of the best ways, and it's absolutely hilarious and wonderful. And I also love the DC heart that's on the back, the hand signal. So grab that. Conan issue 7 from Titan Comics. If you didn't know, Titan Comics now has the Conan proper rights and are putting out a new Conan series. We've got a very Valentine's Day special from Valiant Comics. So you get your Valiant favorites in Valentine's Day related stories. Venom issue 30 out this week. We've got Wolverine Madripoor Knights launching with number 1. This is going to be Wolverine, Captain America, and a Black Widow teaming up. They launched a box for this, and there is going to be a facsimile of that first issue of, Avengers, where they all teamed up the first time. We've got Superman 78, The Metal Curtain, issue 4, which I love that movie poster cover. Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi, issue 4. This is your Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi show adaptation. Gunslinger Spawn, issue 28. We've got The Sensational She-Hulk, issue 5 from Rainbow Rowell. This is the next story from the Rainbow Rowell She-Hulk world. We've got Fantastic Four, number 17. Daredevil Gang War, issue 3. This is part of your Gang War story. You don't have to read this if you're reading Daredevil, and you don't have to read all of Daredevil to read this, but you do need to read this if you're doing the Gang War storyline. Captain America, issue 6 with this homage cover, which is super cute. We've got Birds of Prey, issue 6 from DC, and this is that new team with Barda and Harley and all the kind of crazy people that you would never have pictured on Birds of Prey, which is super cool. And then Avengers, issue 10, and this is your 97 variant, which I love that we're going back to these like 97 animation styles to celebrate the release of the X-Men 97 cartoon coming soon. And then Poison Ivy was out this week, and I forgot what number the issue is. Let me pop the back of this open, but I just want you to see this beautiful foil before I do so. And I love that they made the Jessica Fong cover A, the foil. This is issue 19. I love that series that was supposed to be a mini series got turned into a maxi series, and it's just now an ongoing series. Congratulations, G. Willow Wilson, on just keeping that going. We've got some trades in stock. This is Wine Ghost Goes to Hell. It's all about a girl who was a booze-soaked train wreck, essentially. And now that she's dead, she's still kind of a booze-soaked train wreck. And while she's living down in hell, enjoying the life that she's created there, one of her friends from back on Earth ends up in hell. And so she's like, hey, it's my responsibility to kind of help guide them through what it's like living in hell, for good or for bad. And speaking of wine, we also have the comic book history of beer. This is one of those books that everybody's been picking up this week and going, is this actually the history of beer? Yes, it is. And I'm going to show you the inside of these because I love how detailed these comic book histories have been. We have the comic book story of basketball, the comic book story of baseball in stock as well. We already sold the comic book story of wrestling, but if you're interested, we can always get another one. But this is you're going to get everything from all the way back to the very first time beer existed, and every little fact about how beer is made is going to be in there, and it's going to be super cool. In Utero, this actually came out last week, and I forgot to bring it to the stream. And this has been quite possibly the most picked up book that we have had in the store. This is all about a young girl who, her mom ends up dropping her off at a camp that's inside of a dilapidated shopping mall. And she really hates it, and it feels really weird and gross and terrible in there. And then all these terrifying creatures start coming up. And I'm going to show you just a little bit of that artwork too, because everybody that picks it up starts flipping through it and is like, I really love the way this book looks. So if you're looking for something completely different, this has been, they call it Welcome to the Age of Monsters. This has been one of those that people have been really excited about. And then Frankenstein, Agent of Shade is out from DC Comics. This is one of those Creature Commandos offshoots, and if you are following along with James Gunn's universe, you know that when his movies come out, Creature Commandos is one of the ones he's going to be pushing, and this is just the Frankenstein story for you to kind of get an idea of who that is. That is all the books I have for you this week. It's been awesome. We had so many cool things going on this last week at Bad City. We're going to have some great ones this week. Went to Wednesday night. If you stop by between 6 and 8, we'll have Blind Date with a Book, where we're going to give you some little teaser informations. It's going to just be sales stuff that's actually out. It's not anything that you have to do. It's just if you come shop during the Valentine's Day night from 6 to 8 before the store closes, we're just going to have those out just for Valentine's Day, where you can pick those up, and there's a 20% off sale for that. The other thing is we've got Ladies Non-Binary Nerd Night on Thursday that starts at 8 p.m. We've got the comic creation workshops for kiddos this Saturday, and then we also are going to be downtown Saturday night for the Pittsburgh Pirates block party, kicking off the start of spring training. It's going to be awesome. I'm so excited to be there. It's going to be so much fun. So there's a lot going on. If you're not following us on social media, check us out at Bat City Comic Books so you can make sure you never miss any of the events or big sales that are going on like we have this week. That's all I've got for you. We will see you soon in the shop. Happy reading, everyone.